Both NECA and Super7 are making fantastic adult collector lines for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But now that I have Wave 1 of Super7's TMNT Ultimates in hand, I love one more. We're going to talk about why on this episode of Geek Dad Life. Hey everybody and welcome to Geek Dad Life. It's your host, Jay Glatfelter here. This channel shares the nostalgic passions of an 80s and 90s kid that grew up to be a geek dad. So make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and click on that bell icon to be notified when the latest episode of Geek Dad Life drops. Being a kid whose prime toy buying years were in between 1988 and 1994, I was smack dab in the middle of the rise and absolute dominance of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Aside from Ghostbusters, there was no other toy line that I was as obsessed over as TMNT, and that was the case for a lot of kids that grew up in the 80s and the 90s. While many reboots and variations of the TMNT property have come along through the years, nothing tops that peak heyday era of TMNT with the original cartoon, the fantastic live-action movie, and the amazing toy line. While there have been plenty of TMNT toys to fill toy aisles over the years, only recently have we started to get into adult collector action figures that are trying to tap into that original late 80s and early 90s heyday. NECA, who is no stranger to the TMNT property, making those amazing comic-accurate versions of the Turtles back in the 2000s, has led the charge with an amazing toy line that features sculpts based on the early 90s live-action movies, as well as the cartoon show. And while I have gladly bought up all of the 6-inch movie-style Turtles, I have had an on-again and off-again relationship with the toon-style ones. Starting with the 2016 arcade-style figures, and then the repainted toon-style set that came out the next year. I bought them, really excited for them, but then I just kind of lost the passion to own them, and then eventually sold them to a collector that would appreciate them more. And more recently, they've continued the toy line as a Target exclusive, repackaging some of those Comic-Con exclusives, as well as introducing a whole slew of new characters from that original cartoon show. And while I absolutely had to get the Casey Jones set, I actually bought more over time, but then again, I just got to this point, I was like, I don't love these figures. I have a limited amount of shelf space, so I'm going to return them. Now the story shifts over to Super7 toys. After the fall of Matty Collector, Super7 took up the mantle of carrying the fantastic Masters of the Universe Classics line. And what made the Classics line special is they were kind of updated versions of those original toys that we had as kids in the 80s. And when they announced that they were going to do the same thing with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it definitely piqued my interest, but I wasn't 100% sold yet because up until this point, nothing has really hit me the same way those original toys did. But if any of them could, it would be these, right? Well, nearly a year since those first pre-orders went live, I got a big box on my doorstep from Big Bad Toy Store with the first wave of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Ultimates. Looking at the packaging, it's more of the same if you've bought any Super7 Ultimates figures. While the window is big and shows you everything that's inside, I wish we could have had the original brick motif that we had in the concept art, but obviously probably Playmates has the rights to that in some form or fashion and wouldn't give it to Super7. But still, it would have been a really neat thing to have, or even more so what they did with their continuation of the Masters of the Universe Classics line, where they just had the straight up kind of look and feel of the original vintage packaging. But once I got these figures out of the packaging, I was finally hit with that feeling that I've been looking for out of an adult collector Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line. Holding them in hand, it was like I was taking a time machine and going right back to when I was a kid and I was holding these toys and getting to know these characters for the first time. These aren't exact replicas of the original toys. I still have mine from when I was a kid, and Playmates has re-released those original toys enough time for everyone to have the original figures. But this captures that same magic that the Horsemen did with Motu Classics, is that it is an updated figure, but it has the look and feel. It is that character, but it's a modern figure in a larger scale with better articulation, and it honestly hits all of the points that makes me love collecting toys as an adult. So much of what made TMNT special to me is the time that I had playing with those action figures as a kid, creating my own stories, continuing the stories that I saw on the cartoon show or in the movies with those action figures. While I have seen countless variations of all the characters from TMNT, it's those original action figures that I spent the most time with, that I was the most creative with. So it makes perfect sense that I feel a much stronger connection to these versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's not to knock anything that NECA has done, and even Playmates has tried to make some adult collector toys, but these ones really have the look and feel of those original action figures that I grew up with. You know, to me, the turtles are, you know, the whited out eyes, but it has the letters of their character name on the belt, and just all the little idiosyncrasies of those original toys is the thing that I care about the most. Baxter Stockman, you know, while he has a lot of different looks in the comics and the cartoon and even in the newer movies, it's that action figure version that I associate so much more memories to, and really the love for the property. They've also done a great job by bringing some of the cool things from those original toys, like with Master Splinter. He has a cloth robe just like that original toy did, but there's also a plastic version if you want maybe a more modern style action figure accessory. Plus the additional accessories of the piping hot tea, as well as the turtle, and then like the real usable bow and arrow is a great upgrade versus those original accessories that came with the Splinter figure. But with every figure in this line, you still get that old school weapons rack, where you can, I'm not going to do it with these, but you can take them off and have very vintage accurate accessories to go along with these toys. And while these are absolutely influenced and inspired by the vintage figure, really evoking a lot of the look and feel of those original vintage figures, they do improve things along the way too. While I love the vintage foot soldier, it's kind of crouched in almost simian-like position that it was sculpted in, left a lot to be desired in terms of its posability. But with this figure, it's standing straight upright and really towers over the other figures in the line, much like it did in the cartoon show. So I think that is a great upgrade to this character, but it still looks like that vintage action figure. So it almost solves and rights a lot of the wrongs on that original figure while still hitting all the right nostalgia points. And for the lone turtle in this set, Raphael, we get two head sculpts to choose from, one that is nearly identical to the vintage figure, which when I first thought about it, that's the one I thought I would want on this figure. But honestly, that second head sculpt that the Horseman did, I absolutely love. It kind of hits that right point of giving the feel and evoking that look of what they were going for with the original figures, but doing something new and giving a bit more emotion. And it honestly, to me, looks way better on this figure than the vintage style head does. So to answer the question that I posed in the top of this video, I love the Super7 TMNT Ultimates line so much more because it is the characters that I fell in love with in my mind as a kid for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it has enough new appointments and modern articulation and sculpting to be both something new and old at the same time. And honestly, this representation of these characters is the one that I love the most. And it looks like Super7 is wasting no time. We have another 3 waves after this one coming out over the next year, and I proudly have pre-orders for all of them. Definitely check out some of my other content on this channel, like one of my most recent videos, as well as this one YouTube wants you to check out. And as always, if you like this video, hit that like button. And if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button and click on that bell icon to be notified when the latest episode of Geek Dad Life drops. Until next time, hasta luego and goodbye.